Hello everyone, John from Gaming in the Wild here, and August is upon us, which means I have a brand new indie releases video for you today. I really enjoy making these videos, partly because the research forces me to personally stay up to date with the cutting edge of indie games, and partly because of all the lovely comments I get from people who picked up a game after watching a video and loved it, or wishlisted a couple of titles they didn't know about, or just enjoyed hearing about what was coming out generally. And we have a lot to look forward to this month. A few of my personal favourites include a courtly politics simulator where your decisions affect the direction of an entire nation, a propulsive action platformer set in a clockwork world, and a chaotic bullet heaven that dares to ask, what if Vampire Survivors had been a platformer? So lots to look forward to, but just before we get to those August games, I always like to check in on my most played games of the month just gone, and to do so, I use Playtracker.net. It's a free website that you can link your various profiles to, including Steam, PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch. Playtracker then combines your gameplay and trophies across all those platforms into one easy-to-use profile. And looking at mine, I can see that most of my July playtime was spent in 4 games. I played a lot of Power Wash Simulator 2, and that's because the Star Wars DLC landed, which was really fun. It says 1 hour here, but I think that's down to Nintendo's time tracking. It comes in a little late, which I think is why Splatoon Raiders hasn't popped up yet. I can also see that I played several hours of Cursed Words. That's because I do one run of this Scrabble roguelike before bed, just to relax. I played 5 hours of Assassin's Creed Black Flag, which appears here twice, I think because I had a pre-release code to review the game, and I think the subtle changes they've made to gameplay really improve it actually. And then finally, I played a few hours of Sol Sesto, the visually interesting dungeon crawler with a fun mix of chance, skill, and gradually tilting the odds in your favour. And if you enjoy this kind of info and you'd like to catalogue your own gameplay and trophy progress, you can get a Playtracker account for free using the link that is on the screen now. And if you'd like to add me as your first Playtracker friend, I'd be happy to have you. There's a link to my profile in the description. So thanks very much to Playtracker for continuing to sponsor the channel. They are now the longest running sponsor of Gaming in the Wild, and I really appreciate it. And with that, let's get on with the video. It's pretty hard to follow up a viral hit on this scale of Untitled Goose Game, but Australian developer House will be giving it a try this month with the release of their new multiplayer hangout game, Big Walk. I think hangout game is a little more generous than friend slop, because I don't think this game looks like slop. You can be in groups of up to 12 people, you become little blobby beings, and then walk around a large natural landscape, exploring, talking on proximity chat, and sometimes finding puzzles to solve, trains to ride, caves to explore, and that kind of thing. The game uses the voice chat for charades like obstacles, where you have to communicate by waving your arms around and tell the other player what to do. It looks light and fun, and the previews so far have been really positive about this game, and as someone who usually avoids even the coziest of multiplayer games, I'm quite curious about it, I have to say. It's coming to PlayStation 5, Switch 2, PC and Mac with crossplay. If you want to play with friends across different platforms, that's Big Walk. You might have heard of Fields of Mistria already because it's a cozy life sim game that's been in a years-long period of early access, but it hits 1.0 on August the 5th. That means that the main story will now have an ending, and there'll be a bunch of new features adding in as well, such as, quote, full romance progression culminating in children, unquote. No word yet if that's going to affect the age classification rating. There will also be new NPCs to talk to, mounts that you can use to ride around, lots of new tasks and items and that kind of thing, so it's a pretty substantial upgrade, and if you've played already, your save file will carry over. And if you haven't, there's never been a better time to jump in. It's a game that's a love letter to 90s life sims like Harvest Moon and Story of Seasons, with plenty of modern quality of life considerations too. And while it's Steam only for now, it seems like a game that might thrive on the Switch in the future. That's Fields of Mistria. Next up, we have my first most hype pick of the month. It's coming out on the 6th and it's called Sovereign Tower. It's an ornately hand-drawn, story-forward management game in which you play the titular sovereign of the eponymous tower. Your citizens come to you with their problems and you have to assign knights to help them out, or not. Every decision that you make will affect the main story and how the kingdom's 4 main factions think of you. So it seems like there's definitely an element of Game of Thrones style politicking here, as well as the drive to do the right thing. But there is more to running the kingdom than that, and you will also have to handle tax rates and budgeting, which will affect the citizens' satisfaction with the job that you're doing. There will be foreign emissaries that will arrive with issues from their kingdom that could affect yours, and bad actors who have their eye on your throne and can't wait to put a knife in your back. I think this looks like a really interesting game. There's a demo on Steam now if you'd like to try it out, so prepare to rule, whether wisely or wildly, in Sovereign Tower. Now, I love Steam Next Fest as a great way to discover upcoming games, but something that I've noticed is that the games that I like the most and the games that the Gaming in the Wild community play rarely hit the overall top 10 of the most played games in Next Fest. And one of those games in the most recent fest was Iron Nest Heavy Turret Simulator, which placed 4th in the overall most played games of the fest. The demo actually already has over 4,000 overwhelmingly positive reviews, so people have been loving this, quote, brutal diesel punk heavy artillery game, unquote. It's a first-person game in which you run this giant cannon, you keep the hydraulics working, you use the map to get coordinates for your shots, and then fire and hope for the best. But you will also encounter dilemmas. For example, if High Command gives you coordinates for a shot that frontline troops contradict, you have a choice to make. And if that sounds similar, it's because this game looks a lot like PVKK, another heavy artillery game that's due to come out soon, but this one is sneaking out first on the 6th of August on Steam. That's Iron Nest Heavy Turret Simulator. Also on the 6th, we'll see the release of the full game Ambrosia Sky, which has been out with only Act 1 available for a little while now. And I'm an on-the-record sucker for sci-fi games. I loved Starfield, Cyberpunk, Fallout 4, and more recently Outlaws and Pragmata. I find deep fascination in visions of what humanity might be doing in 20, 50, 100, or 500 years, in the politics, the tech, the clothing, the music, and also speculative takes on how humanity might do as a spacefaring civilization. Ambrosia Sky imagines a future where we've spread out into the solar system using moons as outposts for industry and agriculture. One such facility has been wiped out by an invasive fungal outbreak, and it's our job to go back 15 years later to collect data and samples to handle the infestation and to lay the dead to rest. So it's part narrative adventure and part immersive sim. You creep around these massive graveyards using your various tools to burn or blast or blow away fungal growth. You gather the information and the resources that you need, you perform rituals for the dead, and then you head back out. It's a whole vibe and a very intriguing title. Act 1 has been out for a while, but the full game, including Act 2, drops on the 6th, so we can now discover the end of the story. That's Ambrosia Sky. I don't know about you, but some games get lodged firmly in my mind from just a few seconds of gameplay. I remember getting obsessed with Sable just from seeing her gliding over the sand dunes with those plumes of sand behind her. And something similar happened when I watched the trailer for Frozen Ship, a game that is set in a post-apocalyptic frozen world. You live in a giant vehicle that houses a village of 20 people. It rolls slowly from place to place, and you can get out now and then to explore, to find fuel, to find resources, to contact settlements and find out whether they're hostile or friendly. And you also have to make decisions that will affect the outcome of your expedition, so the game has a mixture of narrative adventure, crew management, base building, and first-person combat with resources and survival elements too. So imagine a cross between The Pale Beyond, Snowpiercer, and The Long Dark, and you might be on the right track. I feel really drawn to this one. There is a demo out now, and it's an intriguing game to say the least. That is Frozen Ship, coming to Steam on the 7th. Next up is Backpack Boy, which comes out a few days later on the 10th. It's a short puzzle platformer that started out as a game jam project but has made it all the way to a full Steam commercial release. It's a game of secrets that can be revealed by literally shining a light on them. You use your lantern or your torch to reveal hidden environmental elements that will help you to navigate the game's mysterious megastructure and figure out what this hulking place actually was. It has a charming pixel art style with some cool visual effects and the use of light over a pixelated environment, and the puzzles look pretty neat as well. I think the core idea of there being multiple worlds stacked over each other that are revealed by light make a lot of room for interesting puzzles. Maybe a bit of a Haiku the Robot like. That's Backpack Boy coming to Steam on the 10th. And then we get two games on the 13th. The first is Duskfade, and Fireshine Games have really been on one this year, with Far Far West and Dench Attack both cutting through the noise and finding a lot of fans. But they aren't done yet. Duskfade comes out on the 13th. It's an enticing 3D action platformer with acrobatic movement, involved combat, parkour and grappling, and a colourful aesthetic that they're describing as clockpunk, that is part medieval fantasy and part clockwork technology. It was a big hit with the Gaming in the Wild Discord community during the last Next Fest and ended up featuring in the patrons' top top 10 games, which is high praise indeed. You can check out the demo now on Steam and play the game on all of the consoles or PC when it drops on the 13th of August. That's Duskfade. Also on the 13th, we get the game with the hardest name to say that's coming out this month. It is Memoirium, like Memorium with memoir instead. I trip over it almost every time. Memoirium, just really tough to say for some reason. It's one for the Souls-like sickos out there. It's a crunchy action game set in a hostile dream world with familiar looking combat for anyone who's played FromSoft games. That is a deliberate and intentional kind of pace with dodging, parrying, blocking, stamina and spells. It has some depth here too, with 14 different suits of armor, 30 plus weapons and 60 plus spells to try, so you can tinker and buildcraft to your heart's content. It's been a while since we got a FromSoft game, and the jury is out right now on the Duskbloods, feels like, so if you'd like to try an indie take on the formula, this might hit the spot. That's Memoirium, out on Steam on the 13th. That brings us to the halfway point of the video, so it's time for the mid-video intermission, and this is where I want to tell you about a game called Re-Night. It's coming out on Steam on August the 4th, and there is a link on the screen now if you'd like to wishlist it, try the demo, etc. I'm a big fan of both strategy games and deck builders. I grew up playing isometric tactics games like Advance Wars and Vandal Hearts, and like a lot of you out there, I have hundreds of hours in roguelikes like Slay the Spire and Monster Train, and Re-Night combines these two genres into one. So I was intrigued when the publisher reached out to sponsor this video. In Re-Night, you start by assembling a party of 3, choosing from 20 different classes like Rogue, Scholar, Shaman and Dancer. You then engage in grid-based combat that's easy to learn but tricky to master. The tactics aspect is deepened by the front and backline positioning of your characters, flanking, blocking and so forth. There are elemental attacks, there are criticals and items that can be used in practically endless combinations. Then between rounds, you'll get to choose cards that will further modify your abilities. And all of this leads to a huge amount of builds and synergies that you can discover, unlock, experiment with, and hopefully win a run now and then. And there is enough meat on the bone here for a lot of runs because the game has over 300 cards and 100 items to find and unlock, and the structure means that it will go in a different direction every single run. You also have map encounters to help untangle some of the story, and each character also has memory fragments to collect that will unlock more abilities that are unique to each class, so it's a cute looking game that has substance as well. And if all of that sounds good to you, you can wishlist it and try a demo on Steam now. The full game drops on the 4th, priced at $14 with a 10% launch discount for 2 weeks. So thanks to Re-Night for the sponsorship, and now let's get on with the video. On the 17th, we get Tukoni Forest Keepers, and I think the first thing that you will notice about this game is that it looks like a storybook come to life, and that's exactly what it is actually. It was made in collaboration with a Ukrainian artist called Oksana Bula, and it's nothing short of mesmerizing, with lush natural backdrops teeming with plants and vines. There's a variety of lovable forest creatures that you can meet. They all have dialogue for you and puzzle-based quests and tasks that you can do for them, so you'll be brewing tea, organizing collectibles in your backpack, and using an in-game notebook to gather clues. It's a slow and simple and deliberately paced chill-out game to relax with over a weekend or to play with kids if you have any in your life. It's PC only for now, and there is a demo on Steam that lasts half an hour if you'd like to try it out, or you can pick up the full game on the 17th. That's Tukoni Forest Keepers. Sometimes we seem to get random patterns springing out of a month of indie game releases, and this month it's all about the first-person games with Frozen Ship, Iron Nest and Ambrosia Sky, but Twisted Tower has a very different atmosphere to any of those. It's a straight-up FPS set in an abandoned theme park, complete with crumbling rides, creepy music, and of course horrifying clown enemies that are out for your blood. I think this might be one for fans of Bioshock because it promises slick action, a variety of weapons to buy and upgrade, bizarre toys that you can use in combats, traps and distractions, and 5 large levels including a water park, hotel, casino and more. If you'd like to hop in early, there is a playtest going on right now that you can request access for on the game's Steam page, and the full game drops for PC on the 18th of the month. That is Twisted Tower. Also on the 18th, we get Entropy, and I was going to start this segment off by saying that the game has an obvious Dread Delusion influence, but it turns out that it's literally by the same developer. So yeah, influenced to say the least. Entropy is an interesting development of Dread Delusion's formula, which was very Elder Scrolls inspired with first-person combat. It replaces it with turn-based JRPG-style bouts. So you assemble a party of up to 6 characters, all of whom have abilities of their own to deploy. They can fall in battle, and there is permadeath in this game, so you'll have to replace them system with mercenaries that you can hire in settlements and out on the field. That does actually remind me of some of the more traumatic moments in Skyrim where my, longtime companion was struck down by a weird tree enemy or something. And like any good RPG, Entropy also has towns to explore and a quest to stop a demonic invasion from decimating this realm, which looks kinda cursed already, not gonna lie, but you can stop it from becoming more cursed. That's Entropy, entering early access on PC on the 18th of the month. I have 4 more games to go before our roundup of AA and AAA titles, and the first among them is a visual novel remake. Not something you'll hear me saying very often on this channel, but it is an especially notable remake of the 2013 Japanese cult classic Steins Gate. I'm gonna guess that most people pronounce it Stein. Here in Iceland we say Stein, so that's how I'm pronouncing it. It's a time travel story where a science teacher and his students discover a way to send messages to the past, a little bit like 12 Monkeys. This of course means that every choice you make will affect the present and the future, so your decisions could change the world forever. This actually isn't the first time this game has been remade. It's been reimagined and remade before, and there were spin-offs and sequels, but this version seems like a real labour of love. The art, the voice acting and the story have all been reworked to fit a modern audience. There is an expanded soundtrack by the original composer, and I'll be curious to see what fans think about these changes and whether or not this will become the definitive version of the game. That is Steins Gate Reboot, arriving on Steam on the 19th of August and then on consoles on October 29th. That brings us to my second most hyped pick of the month, and I was a little bit torn about whether this game belongs in the indie or the AA section because it looks AA, but it is an indie studio, so here it is. It's Mortal Shell 2, a sequel that I wasn't really expecting given that the original scored a lukewarm Metacritic 76 and didn't seem to be that loved, but it must have sold well enough because Mortal Shell 2 is nearly here, and I guess it gives the developers a chance to fix some of the issues that the original had and take another swing at the Souls-like formula. And Mortal Shell 2 does ring in the changes with a different structure. It has a hub area called the Marrow Keep where you can regroup and power up. The combat keeps the hardening mechanic of the original where you can briefly turn to stone to avoid damage, but the combat has also been tweaked with stamina being less important, with posture breaking, critical strikes and finishes being added, with the aim being overall to have a more fluid style of combat. I played the demo of this one in Next Fest and I had a really good time with it actually. It's maybe one of the best Souls-likes that I've played since Lies of P. My only complaint was a lack of restart points, meaning you can get set back pretty far when you die, but I'm optimistic about this one. That's Mortal Shell 2, coming to PlayStation 5, Xbox Series and PC on the 20th. I also want to give a quick shout out to Dawn 1. It's a small solo dev project that strips back all of the systems that I've been talking about throughout this video, like weapons, skill trees, XP and so forth, in favor of pure action, and with permadeath no less as well. I just had a feeling that someone watching this video would really light up to hear about Dawn 1, in a time where it seems like every game is bending over backwards to include every system we might want, sometimes to the point of them just being there for the sake of it. There's something admirable about the purity of intention in Dawn 1, I think. That's out on the 21st. And then rounding out the month, we have a big one. It is Blood Dungeon by Messhov, the creators of Nidhogg and Wheelworld. And after their breezy open-world cycling adventure, this is a return to their slapstick arcade roots. The pitch is simple. It's basically, what if Vampire Survivors was a platformer? And the answer is, you'd get a simple but addictive and compelling video game. I played several hours of this one in Next Fest. It was a time when I was trying to burn through as many demos as possible, but I got quite stuck on Blood Dungeon. It took up a lot of my demo time. I ended up playing an hour of it a day for 3 or 4 days in a row. It's a simple enough game. You run around a dungeon, you kill enemies using auto fire, you collect gems when they die, and every now and then you get a choice of different upgrades that will increase your auto fire, different weapons, different speed, different abilities, that kind of thing. Then you will occasionally get a boss that you mostly have to avoid and hope that your firepower is strong enough to take out. Back at the base, you can unlock new characters that completely change up the playstyle that you're going to have to use to survive. I think this is the perfect second screen game if you're looking for one of those to listen to a podcast or watch a stream or watch this video while you're playing for that matter. Let me know in the comments what you're playing if you're playing a game while you watch. But that's Blood Dungeon, coming to all the consoles and Steam on the 25th. And just before we get to the AA and AAA games, I want to tell you about a Steam code giveaway that I am running for new patrons. This channel is patron supported, YouTube doesn't pay that much, and I get a lot more from Patreon than I get from YouTube, so every single subscriber that I have on Patreon helps me to make these videos for you all. And I really try to make Patreon worthwhile. You get behind the scenes comments about the videos that I make. If you're a content creator, I talk about thumbnails, I talk about analytics and that kind of thing. Every patron also gets an invite to our beautiful Discord community where we run the Next Fest events, we run a Game of the Year event, and we have channels for all of the good new games that are coming out. And for people that join at the MIDI tier or above and really do support the channel with $3 or more, I've spoken to some developers and publishers and I've got a really interesting selection of games. You can choose one when you join. The selection is from the existential comedy game Time Flies, the autobiographical childhood simulator Despelote, the alien channel hopping phenomenon Blippo Plus. I also have codes for the nostalgic football deck builder Nutmeg, the silky racing game Phantom Spark, the conversational deck builder Signs of the Sojourner, the calm nature sandbox Plentiful, and Many Nights a Whisper, the first game from the team behind the forthcoming Virtue and a Sledgehammer. This is a really, really good game here. So head over to Patreon, join at the $3 tier or above. I will get in touch with you personally to say thank you and give you your code. People who join at the boss or benefactor tiers will also get a thank you on every single video I make, like King Champ, Susanna Maria, Drellish, Reistic Studies, Nate, Noah, Jeremy 1, Jeremy 2, Andrew, and Glenn. That's patreon.com/gaminginthewild. Check it out. And now it's time for the AA and AAA games that are coming out in August 2026. There are 7 AA and AAA games that I want to flag for you. On the 4th, it is time for Beast of Reincarnation, which is coming to PS5, Xbox and PC. This is a very modern looking game from the creators of Pokemon, so that's really interesting. It seems to have a Monster Hunter vibe. I'm really curious whether critics will come down on that one. That's Beast of Reincarnation. On the 6th, Lies of P Complete Edition comes to Switch 2. I think that this is probably my favourite Souls-type game that I've played, including the FromSoft games, which might be a bit of a hot take, but check it out. It's a really good one. That's Lies of P. Also on the 6th is Marvel Tokon, Fighting Souls. This is a Marvel beat-em-up that's been getting a lot of hype and had a really positive response to its early playtest. On the 18th, it's time for The Sinking City 2, a surprising sequel to a Lovecraftian adventure game. On the 27th, it's Star Wars Zero Company. It's a turn-based tactics game set in the Star Wars universe, coming from Respawn and EA. Also on the 27th is Resonance, A Plague Tale Legacy, the next game in the Plague Tale series. Looks really slick and cool, and it seems to speed up the gameplay away from stealth and towards pure action. And then finally on the 28th, Elden Ring is coming to Switch 2. I think a lot of people are really interested in how Elden Ring will perform, squeezed onto the Switch 2. It didn't even perform great on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox upon launch, so I'm really curious to watch the Digital Foundry video about that one. And that's the AA and AAA releases of August. And with that, I'm going to leave you with a segment from the Gaming in the Wild podcast, where I talk about some gaming and news, where I talk about my experience with Splatoon Raiders, and when I talk about the card game Shards of Order as well. You can find the podcast tab on my profile if you'd like to hear more podcast, and here it is. I think I want to start, actually, uncharacteristically, with a little bit of console news or games industry news, I guess you could call it, because we're starting to see what I think might be the beginning of a fairly disturbing pattern in what lies in store in the games industry. You know, we see a lot of negative news over the last years. There's been all kinds of stuff. There's been scandals inside of studios with Me Too stuff. There has been mass layoffs. There has been studios shut down after having produced highly rated, good-selling games, which seems like the opposite of what should happen, but it's almost like the game's out and we cannot afford to fund another, so you're gone, basically. It's been a devastating time for the games industry, and I try and keep this podcast in particular like a place that isn't all about that, because we get it from all directions. There are news stories every day. But something occurred to me as I was prepping for this podcast that I wanted to talk about a little, because over the last few weeks, we've seen a bunch of stories that seem to me to be related. We saw that PlayStation are ceasing to make physical media, so no more discs for PlayStation. They've already got a digital-only PS5, which seems to be paving the way for a digital-only PS6. I'm generally a digital player anyway, so it doesn't bother me a huge amount. My attitude to this is that I rarely go back. I'm always going forwards. I'm one of those people who is like a shark who is always moving forwards, eating up new games, and very rarely looking back at old ones. And so I don't really personally care that much about the past of my library. It's like I'm paying to play the game. I play the game. I see credits if possible, and then rarely go back. Occasionally, like a Death Stranding 2, or like a Breath of the Wild, or a Cyberpunk 2027? That's next year, 2077. I will go back and play them again, but maybe I should actually buy those games on physical media if there is a complete edition available, just to be sure I could play them 20 years from now. But for the little games like the Reanimals or the Splatoon Raiders, I don't think I'll be touching them once I've said goodbye to them. So for me personally, I'm not one of those gamers who goes up the wall about physical media stuff. I do see the case for preservation. Like if games are no longer available in physical form, and we're only buying licenses for them and all of that stuff, it does mean that they are only in the cloud. No one really owns them. So if a storefront were to shut down, if the world changed and suddenly things became inaccessible to us, we would lose access to all of that stuff that's just in the cloud. It's a bit like that with Spotify, with Netflix. There's been a gradual trend towards digital-only media that we do not own. Games has proven a little behind the curve. Like, I only consume TV now via digital means, and mostly music. I'll occasionally put on a record or take a CD in a car if we're going on a trip. But very, very rarely do I buy or play music on physical media. And games have been behind the curve on that. I think we have our hardware at home. We don't get them through our phone, at least that's not the primary way that most people play. And so games have proven a little more resistant to the trend towards digital media. But PlayStation is speeding it along intentionally. There's been a huge backlash, and I'm interested to see if they will back off the cessation of Sony games on physical media or not. Xbox has been going in the same direction. They have their cloud streaming service, which they've been building up. And, the fact that they made that deal to split streaming capabilities with Ubisoft in Europe for a certain period of years and then get them back, I think it was like 2028 or 2030 or something, means that they clearly think that game streaming is the future. And if you look at games in the context of what's happening in music and television, you could say that the direction of travel of consuming, in inverted commas, all media is to access it digitally. If you combine that with the rising cost of hardware, meaning that less people will be able to put together a PC, less people will be able to buy a console because, as the Steam machine showed us recently, making a PS5-powered unit in 2026 prices it at over £1,000. I think that limits access for a lot of people. It certainly means that kids that aren't from wealthy families aren't going to be getting a PS6 for Christmas. And it certainly means that people will think twice about getting a PS6, sticking with their old hardware, etc. The direction of travel there seems to be that less people will have powerful hardware or any hardware in their house. And so if you combine that with this lean towards streaming, PlayStation shutting down their physical media, Xbox beefing up their cloud streaming, and recently, the most recent news story in this little block I'm talking about is that Xbox are testing a streaming service that includes ads, which is just a nightmarish idea. How the ads would play if you're mid-game, if you're immersed in a game, if you're playing like an FPS or a third-person open-world game, and suddenly you either have to pause playing to watch an ad, or a pop-over appears that you have to dismiss, or a sidebar appears that shrinks your game window, which would probably make me pause it anyway. Just a nightmare, really. But it does sound to me like they're trying out a Spotify-style free tier of Game Pass that would be ad-supported. So it seems that all the direction of travel is pointing towards console holders thinking about a digital-only future where streaming is perhaps how we experience games. Maybe the PS7 doesn't run games natively. Maybe it's a streaming box by Sony, which would allow them to sell it for $300 or $400. And if people have a fast enough internet connection and can suddenly access PlayStation games for a unit that costs that price, more like the little streaming handhelds that we see now, or like a PS Portal that's dockable, then, that looks like that the console manufacturers may be thinking that way, which is really alarming to me. I really like being able to run games natively at home on my computer, on my PC, and the idea of streaming them, especially out here in Iceland when we're so far from the data centers. We get our internet from Denmark in a cable under the sea, so we have significant input delay and things like that. It's kind of a nightmare scenario. I will say that having thought about all of those news and sort of thought that perhaps the console holders, the platform holders, are thinking towards a streaming future, there is an exception to that, and that is Nintendo. Nintendo still do carts, they still do key carts, they still do physical media. There will be people that say, yeah, but it's not the game. It's like a little download key that you have to put into your Switch to download the game anyway, which is true. But at least Nintendo still have a cart slot on their machines. They still sell boxed games. It's a big part of their model. And then we do have the Lost in Cults and the limited runs and all of those companies that make custom, collectible, complete edition, all in the box games. In the same way that vinyl has become a collectible format now. So, people buy vinyl. I still buy 2 or 3 vinyls a year. I have a rule that I will only buy albums that I play from start to finish and don't skip tracks on vinyl, because it's not like Spotify where you just hit forward on the track you don't like. If it's on vinyl, you have to listen to the whole thing. You're not going to be lifting and dropping the needle. But maybe physical games will become a collector's thing, and maybe there'll be a resurgence of that. Vinyl sales have passed CD sales in the UK. So it could happen. There could be a pushback. Game fans could decide to buy physical media, start eschewing digital media. Who knows what will come in the future? But it's just an alarming picture for us right now. And those 3 or 4 news stories, the PS5 dropping physical discs, the Xbox testing a streaming service, the escalating cost of hardware, owning powerful computers and consoles at home into jeopardy as a concept, just seems to point towards a streaming future. I don't know if the internet is quite there for that to happen. I don't know if the technology is quite there for that to happen. It feels like for a lot of people, streaming games leads to dropped frames, input delay. There hasn't been mass pickup of it. I do talk to people that do it, like Chris, aka Super Nintendad, friend of the pod, uses GeForce Now a lot, which I think is like a PC, apparently very stable PC game streaming service. I just personally haven't had a good experience streaming a game almost ever. So yeah, interesting times for gaming. Who knows what the future holds? That's just my take on the news. And with that, I think we'll get on with the show. Second piece that I want to talk about today is that I got an interesting piece of mail lately. I'm looking over now, it's on my bed. It was a big box in the shape of a giant tome. It has like brown, wrinkled page side texture on it, and it has the words Shards of Order embossed onto the lid. And it says Linnaeus's Journal. It's a promo pack for a game called Shards of Order. Quite an elaborately put together promo pack. It has like a plastic, what would you call it, maquette that you kind of plug together that shows like a landscape and some dark fantasy creatures and a Dark Souls kind of style, like a little maquette that you put together. Maquette's not quite the word I'm looking for, not montage either, like a little landscape box. I'm not thinking of the word right now. It also came with a letter from the developers, signed by all of them. The game Shards of Order is made by Fardust. And the letter was basically saying, we wanted to let you know about our game. You are holding the game's collector's edition before pretty much anyone else. We're Fardust, a small indie team from Poland, backed by the folks at Awaken Realms. So that's the company that's publishing it. And that's why we have this elaborate pack. Awakened Realms were responsible for Tainted Grail, which I also received a really fancy collector's edition for. So I guess Awakened Realms are fond of sending these out. But the letter also says that Shards of Order is a dark fantasy RPG with card-based combat in a world where nothing really stays dead. And it says that they are hyped and terrified to be releasing it on July 28th. It also contained a genuinely wax-sealed letter. Like, I'm looking at this envelope, and that looks like a wax seal to me. Is that plastic or wax? Maybe it's plastic, but it looks good anyway. And that had a game code in the envelope. But the thing that it really caught my attention, and the reason that I'm talking about it now, is that it came with a very beautifully produced Major Arcana tarot deck. So if you know tarot, then the minor arcana are like the 1 to the 10, so it's like the 1 of cups, the 5 of wands, etc. And then the major arcana are the most impactful cards in the deck, and so you get like the Hermit, you get the Star, the Magician, the World, the Sun, the Moon, the Devil. And some major arcana decks, they dispense with the minor arcana and just give you the heavyweights, basically. I'm actually a huge fan of tarot. I love to read tarot. A friend of mine taught me to read like 5 or 6 years ago. She reads every morning for herself. So every morning she'll sit with her coffee or whatever, and she'll pull a few cards for the days ahead. And maybe if you get like the Queen of Swords and the Devil or the Tower and like a 5 or a 6 of Pentacles, you'll think this is going to be a day where I'm chipping away slowly at a job, but I'm going to have some kind of psychological trouble within that day. There's going to be a Tower moment or a Queen of Swords moment where some psychological impact comes into play. And then you can prepare yourself for that. So she would think, okay, be ready for that, be ready for when that happens. Now, at the end of the day, she would often say like, well, I guess that message that I got from a friend that she had lost her job and I had to, comfort her and take a call with her for an hour, that was probably the Tower of the day. And so she would kind of attribute the events of the day, use the cards to prepare for things. And it's not saying that the cards tell you the future exactly. It's that they are little keys into life that make you think about it in different ways. There are people out there who will think of tarot as a divining, like a pure divining deck. Like you're going to have a kid, you're going to meet a tall, dark stranger, etc. But a lot of people use tarot just as ways to think about the world and speak about the world. And when you talk about cards that have been laid out in front of you, you might say things that you wouldn't say otherwise, or reveal things that have perhaps been sitting unsaid in your mind. And so in that way, tarot is an interesting way to talk about life. I love video game tarot decks. I love alternate tarot decks. There are a couple of classic decks, like the Rider-Waite. But there are also modern decks. You see them all the time. You'll have like the Modern Witch deck, which is like a super woke deck. It's very, very beautiful. Lots of people of color in modern life situations. It reinterprets the language of the tarot. I've got one that's like an alchemic tarot deck with hexagonal cards that has cards for the minerals of the earth, and then like a guidebook that you can read that associates them with moments you might be in, etc. But I also have some game ones, like the Sayonara Wild Hearts deck is one of my prized possessions, honestly. It was sold out for so long. They eventually put it back into production. I saw the email and was able to get in the queue and buy it, and it was sold out instantly again. It's holographic, graphical Sayonara Wild Hearts Major Arcana. I have a Citizen Sleeper 2 tarot deck that I absolutely love. No, Citizen Sleeper 1, actually. And that came with the boxed set of Lost in Cult's Citizen Sleeper book. I also have one for a game called Bloodletter that came earlier in the year. So I played that game, it was a little card game. I played it, I spoke about it on the podcast. It's a card game, a digital card game that I kind of enjoyed but fell off ultimately. But the reason that I played it was because they sent me a tarot deck, and now I have another one. So Shards of Order sent me a very lushly produced deck. I'm leafing through it right now. It has like matte and gloss on every card. So for example, the Hermit card here has a kind of golden exploding sun as a head, which is an interpretation of Hermit, who is usually carrying a flame in a torch. Here, the flame is his head, and the Hermit himself is matte, and then the backdrop, which seems to have a sun in the background, is gloss. So it's beautiful to move the card and let it catch the light. The Star, who is a character in the tarot who is often, she's taking water and doing something with it. She has these two urns and she's standing naked in the moonlight, cupping water out from a lake and pouring it onto the earth, or maybe she's doing something else with the water. It's a mysterious process going on, and a moonlit moment that is kind of about being natural in your element. It's one of my favorite cards in the deck. Here, she is like holding fish that's slipping away from her. The fish are gloss, she is matte, and then the moon behind her head is gloss also. They are beautifully painted. They are heavy cards. They're glossy. They've been elaborately produced, and they are quite gorgeous. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Shards of Order. Use it as a little excuse to talk about tarot a little and to talk about video game tarot decks a little. Maybe if people are interested in this, I could like do a stream where I'm looking at the cards or reading the cards for people, or a patron episode that goes deeper into the tarot. Let me know if you would like to hear something like that in the future. And Shards of Order is it looks like a Slay the Spire style game. I've downloaded it. It is now on my ROG Ally, and I'm going to be checking it out for sure. So any publishers or any publicists out there who are working with a card game that has a budget, just wanted to let you know. You send me a tarot deck, I'll be talking about your game. And just finally, before we get to the Splatoon Raiders review, I also wanted to mention that I've been in touch with Panic Games, the makers of Playdate and the publishers of all kinds of interesting games, actually. I mean, recently we had the World Cup, and it got me thinking about football games, and specifically about Despelote, the autobiographical football game that came out last year and made a lot of Games of the Year lists, actually. I was talking to Panic because I really like what they do. You know, they released Blippo, the game where you're channel hopping in an alien TV station. That's like a kind of, what do you call it? Like public access TV from the States where people just make stuff, you know, like Wayne's World. It's like art school, public access, alien world channel bundle subscription. And you just kind of watch TV and you can tune the TV, you can channel hop, and you can try and decipher what is happening in this alien world. That's just a really cool game that I'm glad exists. They also published Time Flies, a game where you try to satisfy the wishes of a fly in the length of its 1 minute lifespan by flying around a house, by playing the guitar, by getting in a cocktail and drinking it, etc. It's existential, it's funny. And so Panic are a company that release great games. The Playdate also a wonderful piece of indie hardware that is full of Nintendo joy. So I was very happy when they got in touch with me and agreed that we could do something together. What we're doing is a giveaway. So for new patrons or upgrading patrons or returning patrons at patreon.com/gaminginthewild, you can sign up or upgrade your tier or rejoin, and I will be in touch and give you a choice of Steam codes for Blippo Plus, Despelote, or Time Flies. I have 10 of each to give away. If you don't fancy any of those games, I have a few codes left for Signs of the Sojourner, Many Nights a Whisper, Phantom Spark, and if you have an EU PS5, 1000 Times Resist. So I currently have 7 different games to choose from. The most games that I have are the Panic games, Blippo, Despelote, Time Flies. It's patreon.com/gaminginthewild. Sign up at the $3 tier or above, and I will be in touch with your game code. And as always, a really big thank you to my Boss tier patrons and Benefactor tier patrons: King Champ, Susanna Maria, Drelesh, Reistic Studies, Nate, Noah, Jeremy 1, Jeremy 2, Andrew, and Glenn. Glenn is a brand new Boss tier patron, so a big welcome to Glenn. Boss tier patrons get a shout out on every show. So if you would like to add your name to that list and support what I do, join at the Boss tier. You too will get a free game and a thank you on every show. And with that, let's get on with it. And the last thing I'm going to talk about on this episode is Splatoon Raiders. It's the only game that I've put significant time into over the last couple of weeks. It's been a busy time. There's been some personal life stuff going on that kind of wiped my attention and my energy for a while there. So I'm just getting back to gaming now. I was actually very happy when I saw that Splatoon Raiders was out. You know, it was just like I saw the posts on release day. It was actually 11 p.m. just before release, and I saw people tweeting about playing Splatoon Raiders, and I was like, oh wow, so it must be coming out at midnight as midnight crosses the world. the game unlocks in different regions. Soon enough, it was midnight in Iceland, GMT 0, all year round. So I downloaded it immediately and started playing it. I'm not a natural Splatoon player. I played a little bit of the solo mode of Splatoon 3, having picked up a physical copy out in Japan, in Tokyo. It seemed like the thing to do to buy the most Japanese Nintendo game out in Tokyo. And I didn't truly gel with it. You know, I tinkered with it, enjoyed it a little bit. But when I saw that Splatoon was doing an actual full-fledged single-player game, I thought, okay, this is my time. But there are some things that spring out straight away if you're not used to Splatoon. The first of which for me was that it uses motion controls as the primary method of aiming. And if you're playing on a handheld, I only play Switch handheld. I think I've docked it twice ever. Once for DK Bonanza, once for Star Fox. Maybe I should dock it again for this game, because if you're holding a handheld, then you are shifting a little where you're sitting, for example, or, you know, you just lay back and lift up your handheld and suddenly you're looking at the sky in the game. There is a button. You can hit Y to reset the camera at any point, but to like looking straight ahead, basically. So if you find yourself looking up when you don't want to move your handheld down, you can reset the camera. Something that struck me straight away was that this is like it's like a whole new thing. It's like you have to relearn how your controller works. You know, at least when you come into a game normally, you know how the controller works and you know where the buttons are. This is like trying to learn how to do VR or something. So it's been a real period of adjustment. You can turn motion controls off, but something that I noticed is that if you turn it off, you are left with a very bare bones aiming mechanism. If you are on a mouse, for example, maybe that would feel good, but on a controller, it doesn't, you know, like aiming feels soft and kind of flumpy, hard to be precise, hard to gauge how fast things are going to move when you hit the stick, hard to gauge how much to move a stick in order to move the reticle. And if you're in a speedy, high-energy shooting game, you need to be on top of all that stuff. And it doesn't have many options attached to the motion controls off mode. Like I think in a lot of third-person shooting games, we've seen innovations like aim assist, where if you use a controller to aim roughly towards an enemy, there will be a small amount of correction that moves your reticle towards them. Some games go further and have snap, so that if you aim towards someone, you will snap to them. And some games have a lock-on even. You know, you just lock on a target and shoot at them, like Elden Ring, you know. You lock on your target and you hurl your fire spells, and you don't even have to aim. They home in, they hit every time. I posted about that on Blue Sky and said I really wish that Splatoon Raiders had a few more concessions to the fact that we're playing on a controller. And I got a couple of like Splatoon nutcases sort of shouting at me, basically. I get the feeling that this game has a fairly fervent fandom, and that expressing any criticism of it will get you some nasty comments. I closed comments on that post to people I follow and who follow me. But I did think about it afterwards. They said, like, you know, the usual stuff. Aim assist is for babies. Aim assist should be an accessibility concern. It should be a difficulty concern. Like, grow up, gamer. Fucking hated that comment so much. Because I thought about it later, and I thought, actually, if you think about what aiming really is in a video game, it's a simulation of a physical action, like the action of pointing a gun, the action of looking down a sight. And when you are doing so, you know, not that I shoot guns a lot or anything, but when you are doing so, you have access to so much information, the sensory information, the feel of the bow or the gun in your hand. You know, I have done archery in the past, so I know. And like looking down the sights of something, your eyesight can be so precise, your micro adjustments can be so precise because of you're using your physical body and you're using all of your senses of feel, hearing, touch, sight, etc. To aim. And so aiming feels like a natural thing to do. However, when you're in a video game, you are robbed of almost all of that. You don't have any feel. The feel of a joystick on your thumb doesn't mean anything. And so I think that actually if you put in things like snap, aim assist, etc., what you're doing is that you're getting closer to the feel. You're simulating that feel of physically aiming by adding some concessions that acknowledge the limited hardware the limitations of video game hardware in allowing you to aim in a way that feels like aiming a bow might feel in real life. And so I think that aim assist and concessions like that, snap, toggle, lock, etc., make the feeling of aiming in a game more like the aim of feeling in real life and are therefore a design concern and not a difficulty decision. Splatoon Raiders has none of that, so it's like perfect aim all the time, or motion controls. So I'm trying to get used to the motion controls, but it's been a little bit of a bumpy entry into using them. It's just so wobbly. You have to think differently. You have to move the screen that you're looking at as well as holding, as well as the controller. So maybe it's something that I should try docked and bring out the old Switch Pro controller, see if it has any charge in it and give it a try. I will do that in time for the next time I talk about Splatoon Raiders. Other things about the game, other than the controls, I really love the visual style. The character designs are cool. They're like the edgiest Nintendo thing that you will find outside of Bayonetta, if you include Bayonetta. I love that they have sort of masks, they have weird eyes, they have sharp teeth, they have strangely coloured mouths, they have odd hair. They are such a strange little squiggle, these inkling people. I really, really enjoy the design. I love the paintball territory covering as a visual spectacle too. So the game's visual design is excellent. There's a lovely skybox in this game too. It has a story, in inverted commas, in that you are 3 treasure hunters who crash your ship on a strange archipelago and have to cross the islands to find parts, to find treasure, because that's your job, and ultimately to fix your ship and get out of there somehow. The story is an irritation rather than something that I want to actively engage in. Within probably half an hour, I stopped reading the text and just clicked through it. It's not really what the game's about, but the game is trying a little too hard to make the story interesting. The writing is bad. I would say that the localization of Splatoon Raiders has a lot to be desired. The characters are meant to have personalities that aren't coming through because I literally don't understand what they're saying. When you're in like a Final Fantasy game or something like that, or a JRPG, and a character will say, "But did you though?" And then the other character will blush, and then they'll say, "Ha ha ha ha," and you're like, "I don't know what this was. I don't know what this moment was." Like Splatoon Raiders is a lot like that. I don't know what these moments are. I don't know what they're saying. So I've just started clicking through it. But the game is mainly about shooting. It's like a series of levels. I'm glad that it's not a roguelike. It's just a series of levels. So you pop into a level, you get out of your submarine, and you have to cross a series of islands. There are monsters spawning on the islands in different configurations. You have to take them all out and then move on. Occasionally there is treasure, which you collect. And then at the end of the level, there is a particularly tough enemy or a particularly tough blood-gated arena or a boss sometimes. And then when you get back, you can look at your treasure, which includes currency, which includes mods, which includes new weapons, new outfits, mod components like monster pieces. And after a while, you can unlock a weapon crafting table, a mod crafting table. You can upgrade your base, which is like a sort of floating raft village made out of the wreckage of your crashed ship. And you can extend the base. And whenever you clear a level, a new one will unlock. You'll get treasure maps to find secret challenge levels, a little bit like in, what game was it? In Astrobot, you get those pocket dimensions and those secret levels, a little bit like that. So you can unlock these secret levels with treasure maps. So lots to do. I will say that whilst there is a lot to do, I have had really mixed feelings about the game. The motion controls have been alienating. The text has been alienating. And the levels are simplistic to the point of being dull. So there are levels where you kind of go underground, you drill down a little, you get one level, you clear it, you drill down again, get a slightly harder level, you drill down again and get a really hard level. They're all kind of the same, honestly. Like, there is not much interest in the levels. There's not much in terms of exploration. In fact, nothing. They're more like small combat arenas with little in between. And so I found the game to be mindless, low-scoped in terms of the world itself. and uninteresting, largely, outside of the shooting, and the shooting is okay. So I think that this is like maybe the most bang average Nintendo game that I have played for a long time, since something like, I don't know, like a 2D Mario game from the Wii era. Since then, I've been very happy with the Nintendo games I've played, even when they're not in my genre, like, the Kirby game that came out recently. Really enjoyed all of the Luigi's Mansion type stuff. Did skip the Princess Peach's Showtime. I thought that reeks of averageness. And I thought the same about Yoshi, the latest Yoshi game. But this one to me is like it has production values that seem more than the scope of it. And I'm at the start. I've maybe played 4 to 5 hours. Maybe it's going to surprise me greatly. But you know what I think I wanted from this game? As much as I don't like to do this, right? I like to look at the game that is in front of me and judge it on its own terms. And I guess the review up until now has done that. But I think going into this game, I was hoping for a little bit more interest in the levels, like an element of exploration. I'm not saying open world, but perhaps open zone. A little bit more of that Nintendo wonder that you would get in something like Odyssey, where you can wander around an area and there's a little place to dig and there's someone down there and you can talk to them and then move on. A little touch of that in Splatoon Raiders might make it feel more like an actual single-player game and less like a series of backwards engineered multiplayer levels and modes that don't fully cohere for a single player. And on that note, I will also say that in the server, there are some Splatoon fans. So Tilda and Soccer and a few other people have been saying that they've been trying out the multiplayer mode and that in co-op, the game is a lot more fun. It does have a co-op mode where you can get people's friends' codes, play together. And that does seem to add a dimension that's missing from this single-player offering. But the most difficult thing about that is that it was marketed as a single-player game, so I've gone in with single-player Nintendo game expectations, and I feel like what I've gotten is a sort of Splatoon multiplayer offshoot mode, more like a campaign mode for a Splatoon game, rather than a full-fledged Splatoon universe single-player game that was built from the ground up to be that. And so I think a lot of the feelings I'm getting of underdevelopment or missing my expectation is that it's not truly a ground-up single-player game, basically. So mixed feelings on Splatoon Raiders. I will say that having come to terms with it not being what I hoped, expected, or wanted, I'm still playing it. Like last night, I picked it up for the second night and played like a couple of levels. I think I will continue to do so. I can imagine being on a flight or something and being like, yeah, I think I'll just clear a couple of Splatoon levels, but it's going to be a very casual side game for me and not a main game. And all of that said, I'm obviously happy for Splatoon people who get a fun new playground to play in. There are people coming into this who've got hundreds of hours in Splatoon, who are used to all of the modes, who are familiar with concepts that I was not coming into this, that will see echoes of Splatoon multiplayer in the game, that will comprehend it and gel with it and enjoy it a lot more than I have. To all of those people, like, I'm happy for you. I'm really glad you've got another Splatoon game. Just as me, as a relative newcomer, it's been a tough entry into it. And that, for now, is my thoughts on Splatoon Raiders. And with that, thanks very much for watching. Drop a like on the video, subscribe for more from me in your feed, check out patreon.com/gaminginthewild, and I'll see you on the next one.